Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, wondering why certain things still bother you after all these years? A comment from a family member, a decision someone made without your input, or the world just feeling like it's spinning a little too fast? Maybe you've caught yourself saying, "I thought I'd stop caring about these things by now." But they still sneak in, don't they? Even when you've got all this wisdom and life experience under your belt, the heart still pulls, the mind still wrestles, and the world keeps challenging your peace of mind. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, and you're certainly not broken. In fact, that tug of war between peace and pressure is something people have felt for centuries. Long before Facebook arguments, doctor appointments, or the never-ending phone calls from insurance companies, there were people, yes, regular people just like us, trying to figure out how to stay calm when life got loud. Not monks on mountaintops or emotionless statues in museums, but men and women who learned how to face life's twists and turns with grace, resilience, and a deep sense of clarity. Today, we're going to borrow a little wisdom from those ancient minds and bring it into our world, your world. Whether you're enjoying retirement, dealing with health changes, helping with grandkids, or just trying to get through the day without stressing over the news, these time-tested ideas are here to help you breathe deeper, let go easier, and live more meaningfully. Let's begin with something you've likely wrestled with many times: control. You wake up, the sun's shining, you've got a plan for the day, maybe a quiet walk, some time in the garden, coffee with a friend. Then the phone rings. Someone canceled, or the weather changes, or your back acts up again. It's frustrating, isn't it? After all, you had things lined up just right. But here's the thing, no matter how carefully we plan, life will always surprise us. And that's where a timeless truth comes in. Control what you can, let go of what you can't. There's a lot in this world we simply don't have power over. Other people's choices, the weather, our bodies' aches and changes, even how others perceive us. But we do have power over something much greater, our reaction. You don't have to get swept up in frustration. You can pause, take a breath, remind yourself, this isn't personal, this is life. And instead of stewing in what went wrong, you brew another cup of coffee, change your shirt if it rained on you, or reschedule the walk. That small shift, that ability to release what you can't change, frees up so much energy. And honestly, after 60, our energy is precious. We've earned the right to protect it. This kind of control isn't cold or detached. It's deeply compassionate. It's telling yourself, I deserve peace more than I need things to go perfectly. And if there's a cat knocking over your coffee or a neighbor's music blasting too loud, you don't have to love it, but you don't have to let it ruin your day either. Now, once we stop chasing control over the uncontrollable, we suddenly notice something else: how often our minds are everywhere except here. That brings us to our next principle: be fully present in the moment you're in. Think about this for a second. How much of your day is spent replaying the past or worrying about the future? Maybe you catch yourself thinking about a conversation you had with your son last week and wondering if you said too much. Or you're looking at tomorrow's calendar, already feeling tired from things that haven't even happened yet. And in the middle of all that mental noise, you're pouring your tea, but not tasting it. You're sitting in your favorite chair, but your mind's 100 miles away. Someone once said, "Do not let the future disturb you, for you will arrive there, if you arrive there, with the same reason you now use to deal with the present." In other words, the future isn't here yet. And the past? Well, that's just memory. What's real is right now, this breath, this moment. And when we can be truly present, we begin to notice all the small, quiet gifts we usually miss. The way the light hits the kitchen table, the sound of a bird just outside the window, the warmth of a grandchild's hand in yours. These things aren't flashy, but they are everything. Being present doesn't mean we ignore the past or stop planning for the future. It just means we don't live there. We don't carry yesterday's mistakes like a weight, and we don't let tomorrow's worries steal today's joy. Life slows down when you stop rushing mentally. And in that slowing down, something beautiful happens. You start to actually feel alive again, not just busy or distracted. Of course, just when we get the hang of being present, life likes to throw in another challenge: change. And let's be honest, change hits differently as we get older. Maybe your neighborhood doesn't look like it used to. Maybe you've lost some people along the way. Or maybe your own body feels like unfamiliar territory. It's not always easy to accept these shifts. But that's where our third principle steps in. Embrace change as a natural part of life's rhythm. It can feel like the world's moving on without you sometimes, can't it? Like the music's changed, the technology's left you behind, and everyone's in a hurry to get somewhere you're not trying to go. But here's the truth. Change isn't something going wrong. It's life doing what it's always done. The trees lose their leaves, the rivers shift course, and yes, people grow older. None of that is a mistake. Someone once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And when we treat change like an enemy, we suffer twice. Once from the change itself, and again from our resistance. But when we can lean into it, when we say, "Yes, this is different, but I can move with it instead of against it," we soften. We make space for the new. And sometimes, that new brings blessings we never expected. It might be quieter now in your house than it used to be. That can be lonely, sure, but it can also be peaceful. It might take you longer to do the things you once did quickly, but maybe you notice more in the process. Every change carries the seed of something meaningful. If we stop resenting the endings, we just might start noticing the beginnings. Letting go of control. Being here, now. Opening ourselves to change. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're muscles we can build, even in our 60s, 70s, and beyond. And the best part? We're not doing it alone. You've got centuries of wisdom behind you, and a whole community of people just like you, trying to live with more grace and less stress. Now, with these first few tools in hand, let's keep moving forward. Because the journey toward a calmer, deeper life doesn't stop here. It only gets richer. You might be surprised how much lighter life feels when you stop resisting the natural flow of it. There's something powerful about saying, "Yes, life is changing, but I don't have to fear it." That kind of inner calm doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from trusting yourself to handle things as they come, even if you don't love the way they look at first. And that brings us to something that many of us have wrestled with for years: how much we rely on the approval of others to feel good about ourselves. Let's be honest, we all care what people think. It's part of being human. But somewhere along the way, especially in this digital age, it's become too easy to let other people's opinions shape our self-worth. Whether it's a family member's offhand comment, a friend who stopped calling, or the feeling that you've been overlooked in conversations, these things can sting more than we care to admit. But there is another way. A quieter, steadier path that reminds us true validation comes from within. You are not your last mistake. You are not your job title. And you're certainly not the number of likes or comments you get on social media, if you're even on there at all. Your worth is not up for public vote. It's rooted in how you treat people, how you carry yourself, and how you choose to respond when life tests you. And after 60, that self-respect becomes even more important, because this chapter of life, this hard-earned, beautiful chapter, deserves to be lived on your own terms. Someone once said it best, "Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems." Think about that. It's not always the situation itself that causes pain. It's what we think it means. When someone doesn't call, we wonder, did I do something wrong? When a plan changes, we feel forgotten. But often, it's just life happening. People get busy. Things fall through. You don't need to read into every silence or second-guess your worth. The next time that inner critic shows up, telling you you're not needed, not important, not as sharp as you once were, I want you to pause and ask, whose voice is this really? Because chances are, it's not yours. It might be old habits, old wounds, or old fears talking. But your true voice, the one you've built over a lifetime of experiences, that voice knows better. That voice knows your value. And when we stop chasing approval, we start finding peace. We begin to live for what truly matters to us. Which leads us to something that's sometimes the hardest of all, learning to let go. Letting go is not giving up. It's not forgetting. It's not saying something didn't matter. It's simply acknowledging that holding on to certain things, whether it's regrets, expectations, or even grief, can weigh us down more than we realize. As we grow older, we naturally begin to look back more often. We think about the people we've lost, the things we didn't say, the moments that didn't turn out the way we hoped. That's normal. That's human. But loss is not the end. It's simply part of life's rhythm. Someone once wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." I know, it might not feel very delightful when you're in the middle of it. But if you've ever watched the trees in fall, you know this. Letting go of old leaves makes room for new ones. And you are allowed to do the same. It could be something small, like finally giving away a box of old clothes you've been meaning to sort through. Or something big, like loosening your grip on a grudge that's been sitting in your heart for decades. Whatever it is, releasing that weight doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. And with that freedom comes the chance to live lighter, to focus on what's still possible instead of what's already past. Even the hard memories, the ones we don't like to revisit, they've shaped you. But they don't define you. You are not just the chapters you've closed. You are also the pages you still get to write. And those pages can be full of laughter, connection, and yes, even growth. Speaking of growth, that brings us to a principle that might surprise you. You see, it's easy to think that growth is for the young. That once we reach a certain age, we've already done all the growing we're going to do. But the truth is, challenges still help us grow, at any age. Think about the last time you had to deal with something hard. Maybe it was a health scare, or navigating a change in your family dynamic, or just learning how to use a new phone. At first, it probably felt frustrating or even overwhelming, but eventually, you adapted. You learned something. You became stronger. That's the deeper lesson here. Adversity isn't something to run from, it's something to grow through. As someone wisely said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Every challenge we face is like a weight we lift. It might be heavy, but it builds resilience. And at this stage in life, that resilience is one of our greatest strengths. You've already been through so much. You've overcome setbacks, disappointments, and heartaches that would have knocked others down. And yet, here you are, still standing, still learning, still becoming. So the next time life throws you something difficult, I want you to remember, you've handled worse. You've earned your scars. And you're not done growing yet, not by a long shot. And with that mindset, that quiet strength that comes from experience, you begin to live with more depth. More intention, less panic, more presence. Because the truth is, life at this stage isn't about proving yourself. It's about honoring yourself, listening to your needs, trusting your intuition, and embracing the richness that comes with having lived through so many seasons. Not every day will be easy, but every day still holds value, and every challenge still holds a lesson. With so much behind you and so much wisdom within you, life now becomes less about chasing and more about deepening. You don't need to rush toward anything anymore. Instead, you can take your time, savor the moment, and focus on what really matters. And one thing that matters, perhaps more than ever, is what we carry in our hearts. Here's a truth worth remembering. Real wealth is found within. If you turn on the TV or scroll through the internet, it's easy to feel like you're falling behind. Everything is about the next purchase, the bigger car, the younger face, the flashier lifestyle. But some saw through all that long ago. One wise voice put it this way: "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." In other words, no matter how much you have, if you're always chasing more, you'll never feel full. But if you're content with what you already hold, your values, your experiences, your relationships, you're rich beyond measure. Think about the people you've met in your life. Maybe you've known someone who didn't have a lot of money, but they had a garden that fed the neighborhood. Or someone who wasn't famous, but whose stories lit up a room. That's inner richness. That's the kind of wealth that doesn't fade, doesn't get taxed, and can't be lost in the stock market. Your memories, your resilience, your laughter, your lessons learned, these are treasures. And when you start seeing your life through that lens, you'll notice how full it already is. Maybe you're not traveling as much as you used to, or you've scaled back on certain things. That's okay. A slower pace often reveals what a faster life hides. Now let's talk about something that's not always easy to accept. Sometimes, life doesn't go the way we planned it. We try our best, we make the right choices, and still, things don't turn out. And it can be incredibly frustrating, even heartbreaking. But there's a powerful truth to hold on to. Accept life as it comes, and wish for things to happen as they do, not as you wish they would. That doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean being passive. It means meeting life on its terms, not resenting it for not matching our expectations. As someone wisely said, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. This shift is subtle, but it's powerful. When we stop fighting with reality, we stop suffering twice. Once from the situation, and again from our resistance to it. Maybe your body doesn't work the way it used to. Maybe people around you have changed or moved on. Maybe something didn't happen that you'd hoped for. It's okay to grieve that. But it's also okay to trust that there's still beauty in what is. Sometimes the most unexpected turns bring us exactly where we're meant to be. A canceled plan leads to a quiet moment you didn't know you needed. A door closing makes space for something better. You don't have to understand it all in the moment. You just have to stay open, and a little bit brave. And while we're talking about opening up, there's one more principle that often gets overlooked in conversations about inner strength. People tend to think of those who stay calm in chaos as cold or detached, but that couldn't be further from the truth. One of the most meaningful reminders is this: be of service to others. You're not here just to drift through life. You're here to make a difference. And no, it doesn't have to be grand. You don't have to start a charity or write a book unless you want to, of course. Sometimes, being of service means listening to someone who feels unheard. It means checking in on a neighbor. It means passing along a little bit of wisdom you've learned the hard way. Someone once said, "We are all bound together in a partnership." In other words, we belong to each other. And when you share your time, your attention, your care, you're not just helping others, you're feeding your own soul. Studies even show that acts of kindness boost our mood, ease anxiety, and create a sense of purpose. And at this stage of life, purpose is everything. Don't underestimate the power of your presence. You've seen more than most people around you. You've lived through chapters they're just beginning. Your stories matter. Your support matters. You matter. And that brings us to one final practice. A quiet, powerful one that holds all the others together. Take time to reflect, review, and realign. In a world that moves at lightning speed, one of the most radical things you can do is pause. Just stop, breathe, and look within. One thoughtful soul once made it a daily habit to reflect and ask, did I live today with integrity? Did I waste energy on things that don't matter? Did I treat others with kindness? You don't need to write in a journal or sit on a mountaintop. You just need a few minutes of honesty with yourself. Maybe it's with your morning coffee, or while watching the sun go down. These quiet check-ins are like little tune-ups for the soul. They help you catch yourself before bitterness creeps in. They remind you of what you still care about, and they help you realign when life knocks you off center. You don't have to be perfect. No one is. But you can be aware, you can be thoughtful, and you can keep adjusting your course, not out of guilt or regret, but out of love. Love for yourself, for your peace, for the kind of life you want to keep building. These 10 principles aren't rules. They're reminders. Gentle nudges toward a life that's more grounded, more intentional, more free. You already have the wisdom. You already have the strength. And now, you have a few tools to help you keep moving forward with grace. If something in this conversation resonated with you, if a phrase or a thought lit something up in your heart, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Maybe it was a line that stayed with you. Maybe it was a story that reminded you of your own. Share it below. Let's learn from each other. Let's support one another. And if you found any value in this time we've shared, if it brought you even a little peace or clarity, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It helps more people find it. Subscribe to Strong Elderly Life if you haven't yet, and ring that little notification bell so we can keep meeting here, sharing these moments, growing together. Remember this, your best years aren't behind you. They're not on some timeline you missed. They're here, now, in every breath, in every conversation, in every choice to show up with calm and courage. Here's to living your best life at any age. Here's to keeping your heart steady, your spirit curious, and your days meaningful. And until we meet again, stay strong, stay kind, and keep going. You've got this.